Welcome to the Unhinged Podcast. Your host Darius and Emma.
And today we will be talking about the Jayme Closs case. So, a little warning, the content that we will be talking about today discusses mature themes of homicide and kidnapping. Viewers' discretion is advised. So, Jayme Closs, she was born on July 13th, 2005 in Barron, Wisconsin to her parents, Denise and James Closs. Both of Jayme's parents worked at Jennie-O, which was a turkey plant who was a major employer in their small community in Barron. She attended Northwood High School in Minong, Wisconsin. She had many different hobbies and interests. She loved to dance, play sports, she loved to hike. She engaged in many school activities, and she was absolutely obsessed with her dog, like most of us are, and her dog's name was Molly. Jayme was overall a very normal teenage girl leading up to her kidnapping. Her mother would post numerous photos of her daughter on Facebook, I think like all of our mothers did. I hope Jayme's weren't as embarrassing as my mother posts of me. And she would always caption her photos, a kind-hearted girl. She was known by friends and family as very shy and sweet. She was about 5 feet tall at the time of her disappearance, around 100 pounds. She had beautiful strawberry blonde hair and had remarkable big green eyes.
The incidents that facilitated her kidnapping and her captivity. In the middle of the night, on a Monday, October 15th, Jayme and her dog Molly were fast asleep. Molly suddenly wakes up after hearing a car pull up in their driveway, waking Jayme and alerting her of an unfamiliar car parked in their driveway. Scared and confused, Jayme rushes to her parents' room to alert them of the unidentified vehicle that had randomly parked in front of their house. Jayme's father, Jayme Closs, goes to the front door with a flashlight to see who's there. As he's doing so, he watches a man exit his vehicle and calmly walk up to the steps of the front door. Meanwhile, Jayme and her mother Denise retreat to the bathroom, sensing equally that this was going to possibly be a home invasion. Because of this inkling, Jayme and her mother decided to barricade the bathroom door with a dresser, shut the curtains, and went into the tub. At this time, Jayme assumed that this could be a police officer, so to be certain, Jayme looks through a small window in the front door and asks the man to show them his badge. Unfortunately, at the same time, this man shoots and kills Jayme's father, Jayme Closs, with a shotgun.
So, again, it was at this moment that Jayme recounts that after hearing the shotgun blast, she knew her dad was dead. I can't imagine what was going through her head right now. So, Jayme's mother, Denise, quickly understands the severity of the situation and decides, obviously, to call 911, I think like anyone would. After talking with the dispatcher, she confirms there are no police officers in their area, and the man who had just shot Jayme was indeed no police officer. At this time, the perpetrator is trying to bust in the front door of the Closs house. So after a few hits to bust the door down because he's trying to get in, he realizes that he won't be able to get in. So he fires a few rounds of his shotgun into the doorknob, allowing the door to come completely wide open, opening up to endless possibilities after he infiltrates his house. So upon infiltrating it, the perpetrator steps over James's dead body and searches the house. He realizes that all the doors in the house are open, except for one. Evidently, leading him to think that obviously this is where Jayme and her mother are hiding, in the bathroom.
Once again, trying to bust down the door of the bathroom, he manages to split the top of the door open, as only a dresser protected the bottom half of the door. Once he enters the bathroom, he rips off the shower curtains, and only to find Denise and Jayme bear hugging in the tub. The man hands the duct tape to the mother and instructs her to put it on her daughter's mouth and around her wrists. Denise declines, forcing the man to push her aside, along with his shotgun and duct tape Jayme himself. He then picks up Jayme up out of the tub, picks up the shotgun, aims it at Denise, turns his head, and shoots and kills Jayme's mother. He was only in the house for 4 minutes.
So now that this perpetrator has Jayme, he picks her up, brings her to his car, throws her in the trunk, shuts it, and starts driving. So I cannot imagine what Jayme's thinking right now. She's in the dark, she just woke up, and now she's just seen both of her parents killed. About 20 seconds after leaving the home, the man sees all the cop cars on the way to Jayme's house, fleeing the scene, obviously without a trace. It was later confirmed that police officers do remember seeing a Taurus model car yield to let the police through, which we'll talk about this type of model of vehicle further on, as this is the perpetrator's car. So Jayme, in the trunk, could also hear the sirens fade as they continued driving, which must be surreal, and she probably has no idea what's going on right now. She's completely drained. The man then drove 70 miles from the scene of the kidnapping and double homicide to his small, cluttered home, with Jayme still in the trunk.
Upon arriving to the residence, he burns Jayme's clothes, his gloves, and the duct tape he gave Jayme, some of his old sister's pajamas, and instructed her to go hide underneath his bed, where he then barricades her underneath the bed. Jayme was left with a pillow and a blanket, as she was left hidden and ignored by her captor, where she would be threatened, and he would say to her, "If you try to escape, bad things are going to happen to you." After witnessing him murder her parents right in front of her, she was paralyzed with fear, knowing that what he was capable of. This mutual understanding that she knew what her captor was capable of is what also what he had done to her parents was a psychological hold upon Jayme to never try anything stupid. Jayme was told to always stay underneath the bed and never leave, which is what she did, sometimes going as long as 8 to 10 hours a day, laying underneath his bed in the darkness with no food, water, or bathroom breaks.
So, surprisingly, the perpetrator actually never had a plan once he got her to his house. So she was left there, oftentimes neglected and completely ignored. After the initial 2 weeks of Jayme being kept captive in his house, under his bed, and always threatening her, saying there's a shotgun right outside the bedroom door if you try anything, her captor became very confident that he was never going to get caught. It even got to the point where he felt comfortable inviting family and friends over, knowing that no one would come looking for Jayme, since no police had arrived at his door within the last few weeks. So Jayme's captor never actually really left the house much, where he only left Jayme alone in the house one time when he went to visit a grandparent. He once again created this intense psychological hold around her neck, threatening her by saying that he'd hurt her if she ever tried to escape. After reaching a high confidence threshold, he actually applied for a job. I can't even imagine this, but one day he left the house for the job interview, and ironically, he wrote on his application that he was an honest, hardworking guy. He continued to write that he was, quote, a quick learner despite having limited job experience, end quote. After 88 days, which is about 3 months of being held captive, Jayme decided that she had enough and broke free of the barricades that kept her hostage under the bed once he left. She put on his shoes, which were too big and were put on the wrong feet because she was obviously running out in a hurry. And she stormed out of the door, running for her life.
Upon escaping the house, she was completely disoriented and had no idea where she was, but she kept running as far away as possible from the house. At around 4 p.m., a woman named Jenny Nutter was walking her dog, and she saw a teenage girl with no coat on in the middle of the dreadful cold Wisconsin winter, running towards her. Instinctively, Jenny knew that something was wrong. After Jayme reaches her and tells her that she's lost and her name is Jayme, Jenny knew exactly who she was. She had seen posters of Jayme all around her neighborhood and immediately gave her a big hug and told her, "I got you."
Completely stunned, the first thing she did was she took Jayme to a nearby neighbor's house, explained to these neighbors the situation, called the police, and the residents of the home took out their weapons and guarded the door in case Jayme's captor were to come looking for her. Upon calling the police, they were beyond shocked when finding out that Jayme Closs was found and that she was actually alive. They were quick to respond because they knew that her captor couldn't be far and would soon realize that Jayme was missing.
After getting back from his job interview, he realized that she was gone and noticed footsteps leaving from his property in the snow. He immediately went out to look for her, where he was pulled over by police because the description of Jayme's captor's car matched his Ford Taurus. He immediately identified himself and confessed to kidnapping Jayme Closs. He was given a life sentence with no parole. Jayme's family home had since been demolished by the bank after consulting with family members.
I think that's the best thing that could happen. That house was a reminder to Jayme of the tragedy that took place, obviously leading up to her kidnapping and the death of her parents. And now we're actually going to talk about who this perpetrator is and the premeditation behind his crimes. James and Denise Closs were murdered by the same man who obviously kidnapped their daughter, Jayme Closs. This man's name was Jake Thomas Patterson. Born in Gordon, Wisconsin on June 17, 1997. At the time of the kidnapping and homicides, he was 21 years old, and he lived just 70 miles north of Jayme Closs's barren residence.
Jake Thomas Patterson admits that he didn't have a motive to kidnap Jayme. He only knew of her existence by coincidence. One day, Jake was driving on his way to his new job at the cheese factory in Wisconsin when he came to a stop behind a school bus that was holding middle school students. He looks up to the blonde-haired, green-eyed girl he knew in that moment that he wanted to have her. Patterson told investigators that he immediately went to a Walmart in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, where he purchased items to use in the abduction. A black-colored balaclava-type mask to conceal his identity, according to the complaint. On the night of the kidnapping and the double murder, Patterson took his father's 12-gauge Mossberg pump shotgun with him. According to ABC News article, he told investigators that he selected the gun because he had done research. I knew that the Mossberg shotgun was one of the most heavily manufactured or owned shotguns and assumed it would be difficult to trace. The defendant stated that he felt that the 12-gauge slug would inflict the most damage on someone and would be most likely the best choice of shell to kill someone. He also told investigators that he shaved his face, head, and showered before leaving the house, so that he would not leave any DNA or hair at the scene. Patterson told police he even carefully selected the clothes to wear that night. Brown steel-toe boots, blue jeans, black jacket, and work gloves, and the black balaclava mask, according to the complaint.
That doesn't scream premeditation. I don't know what does, but...
Yes, I agree.
Jake Thomas Patterson had confessed that he did in fact kidnap the girl, Jayme Lynn Closs, and even admitted to killing both her parents, James and Denise. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of kidnapping, and another count of armed robbery, but the judge decided to dismiss this armed burglary charge. He was sentenced, obviously, thank God, to 2 consecutive life sentences for the double homicide without the possibility of parole, plus 40 years for the kidnapping of Jayme Closs, while his bail was set to $5 million.
While Jake was in jail, he wrote an apology letter for Jayme Closs's family. He stated that he did what he did out of impulse. He also stated that his intentions would plead guilty right from the start.
So I have a question for you. After talking about that horrifying turn of events and what seemed to be a very happy family's life, an end of life, tragically, if you were Jayme and you had just lived this horrifying time, and you received a letter from the man who inflicted all this pain upon your family while he was in jail, and he said, I don't really know why I did it, what would you do?
There's nothing much I can do. There's nothing much she can do. Just when someone's deranged like that, there's nothing you can do about it. They're just born like that. Or it doesn't necessarily mean they're born like that. It could also be just their family, him as a child. Maybe something happened to him. I don't know what I would do. I don't think there's much I can do, to be honest. Just ignore him.
Yeah, I think that's a super valid point. I think that's a huge question in all of this, that nothing really happens out of impulse to this intense, dramatic extent. So maybe that's something that we should review in the future. Who is Jake Thomas Patterson? What was he like growing up? And who was he like growing up?
Maybe that can solve some of the questions we have. Why he is the way he is.
I think there's still so many questions. I can't imagine for Jayme living the rest of her life without her parents not knowing why. It's horrifying, horrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this is the Unhinged Podcast. My name is Emma.
And this is Darius, and we hope you enjoyed listening, even if it was a grim episode. We hope you still enjoyed. We still hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about crime.
We can't wait to see you all again in the next video.
Next video, we will be talking about the Yorkshire Ripper, if you guys know who that is.
It's got a Netflix series called The Ripper, who talks all about the Yorkshire Ripper, who actually went by Peter Sutcliffe. So stay tuned for that.
I hope you guys have a wonderful day, morning, evening, wherever you guys live, whatever. Peace.